Hey everyone, I hope that you're doing amazing. Today I have a video that's quite different from my typical content. It is a story time on the exact moment when I decided that I wanted to be my own boss. So this was a huge pivotal moment in my life, and at the time it was like the worst day ever, just because obviously all the drama that happened, which I'll share with you. But now looking back, I know that it was a blessing in disguise. I know that it was God preparing me for something so much better, so much greater. And so I just hope that this message finds you in a space. Perhaps you're in a time in your life where things seem down, where you're not really getting the results that you seek. This is just my message to you that life gets better, that things can change literally within a day. So let me tell you about my story. I was actually a biology major at Loyola Marymount University, and I wanted to become a doctor. That was the plan, was to become a dermatologist. That's what I wanted to do since I was a little girl, basically, was to treat skin and potentially come up with my own skincare line one day. Obviously, that's not my path anymore, and I've come to terms with that completely. I'm actually really happy with where I am now. And that's another thing that I want to highlight is a lot of us have these dreams growing up, and it is completely okay to detour from that, to pivot. A lot of us get stuck with a certain career or a certain lifestyle because we think, well, this is what we wanted, this is what we decided, but things change, and a lot of times what we wanted 10 years ago isn't the same as what we want today. And so that was my story, literally. The more that I spent time in the medical industry, just as a medical scribe and then later as a technician, I realized that it really wasn't what I wanted. I personally am someone who's so bubbly and positive and happy. You guys know me. I always try to bring my best self, my most positive self out into the world. And unfortunately, that is just not healthcare. I mean, you're surrounded by people who are sick and by people who are, going through sometimes the last days of their life. And it's really difficult. And that energy rubs off on you. You need to be so strong-willed. You need to be so just, in a sense, almost impenetrable. I remember working at different medical clinics and going in the bathroom during my lunch break and just crying because I was so sad, because I was so stressed out, because I was burnt out, because I was underpaid, because I just couldn't handle all of the things that I was enduring. And my mom noticed this too. Like, she was one of the first people to be like, I don't think you should do this, because she saw, her young little happy child become so sad and so stressed and literally depressed that she knew that this career just was not going to be good for my soul. So in college, I actually shadowed a local dermatologist, and shadowing is basically when you are shadowing a professional. So you're kind of following them around, you're seeing what a day in the life would look like in this potential career and things of that nature. So you're not really doing much technically besides getting an idea for what the career looks like, and obviously you can ask questions, and it's a great way to get to know more about the career. Now, I basically had started shadowing because of a class assignment. So in college, I was a biology major, but I had a business minor, and in order to fulfill the business minor, I had to take a certain amount of business classes. So one of these business classes was extremely hands-on. It was actually such an amazing class. We had to make our own TED Talk. We had to do a lot of things that really prepared us for the real world. And one of those things was shadowing a professional in our dream field. And so obviously for me at the time, my dream field was dermatology. So I had gone and started shadowing a local doctor, like I said. So this started off kind of just being something I was doing out of the kindness of my heart, right? I was volunteering, I was just doing it to fulfill this class requirement. Like, it wasn't a job, I was not getting paid. And over time, I started realizing this doctor was expecting more and more and more of me. And I only really had to do a certain amount of hours to fulfill the expectation for my class, right? I don't remember what it is, but let's just say it was 20 hours. So I would come in a few hours, you know, after school, and then I noticed if I wasn't coming in, this doctor was like, are you still coming? Are you still gonna shadow? And it became more of like an expectation versus something that I was doing for my class, right? So she started expecting more and more from me. And instead of me going in there and just shadowing her and asking questions and it being kind of a fun experience, she started handing off to me things that she didn't want to do. So for example, she would give me all these different insurance claims and be like, oh, here, figure this out, right? And it would kind of be like, oh, just do all this grunt work that her medical assistants didn't want to do. So I found myself not even really getting to do the things I wanted to do, because what I wanted to do was to see her in action, was to see her actually, you know, examining moles and prescribing medication for acne and doing those sorts of things, right? Performing biopsies. So I wanted to be observing that and be observing her, but instead she was just giving me paperwork to fill out and to do on her behalf. And, you know, writing blog posts for her website, which once again, this is pretty typical of most medical scribes or medical assistants or people who are shadowing. They basically just end up being this professional's free assistant. So that was already annoying. Then I ended up getting in a huge car accident. I don't want to get into it too much, but I was actually in a neck brace. So naturally, I wasn't going to shadow. And this doctor was just like, why aren't you here? You haven't showed up. And I was like, well, I'm in a neck brace. And she's like, oh, that's fine. You can come in with the neck brace. So she was literally expecting me to come in, even though I had literally just been in a major car collision that caused my car to be completely totaled. So that was annoying, having to explain to, you know, patients why I was in a neck brace and why she was like kind of forcing me to be there when I didn't need to be. Because at this point, the class was already over. I had already done the assignment. I had already done what I needed to, and I was basically just being there now to volunteer out of the kindness of my heart. But she continued to take advantage of me. And during this time, she was actually sweet enough to give me this book. It was kind of like a dermatology guidebook that had a lot of different pictures of, you know, different skin conditions with the medical term and kind of a description. And it was just kind of a nice thing that someone who was interested in the field would want to have. So it seemed like she had gifted me this book, right? Because she was like, here you go, you can use this, maybe this is going to help you. So mind you, this was all going on in LA. Now, during college, typically in the summers, I would come home to Orange County. And so that's exactly what I did. I came home to Orange County, and at this time, I might have even graduated. Did I graduate yet? I'm not sure if I had graduated college. But anyways, she ended up having one of the medical assistants reach out to me kind of like rudely, like, could you please send over that guidebook that belongs to the doctor? Which that was already weird because I felt that that guidebook had been a gift, but anyways, I ended up shipping it out, and I even wrote a huge like handwritten note, a handwritten card just expressing my gratitude and appreciation for the experience and all of that, which I didn't receive any feedback from. So this is kind of giving you an idea for how you're treated in the medical field. So that was already like a poor, negative, sour experience. So after I graduated college, I moved back home and I got a job as an ophthalmic technician. And I had found this job, I think through Indeed or something like that. And so I went in to interview. Mind you, they were offering me, oh my goodness, I don't even remember. I think it was like $12 an hour. And mind you, I had a biology degree from a private university, and I had been making double that tutoring kids. So this was already such a low ball offer they were giving me, and I was able to negotiate the rate up to $14 an hour, which isn't much, but it gets worse. So I start this job, and oh my God, it was just so much work, okay? Not only were you trained to do X, Y, and Z, but they are also wanting you to progress, to learn new machines, to learn how to do extra things, right? But pay wasn't going up. So they kept expecting and wanting more and more from me, but the pay wasn't reflecting that. And most of the days I had to come early, I had to stay late, and it was just a very stressful environment. This doctor was seeing like over 100 patients a day. It literally felt like a factory, like where even if you were spending too much time with a patient in one of the rooms, they would literally yell at you. And it was so like eye-opening, because I'm like, wait, I thought healthcare was all about catering to the patient and offering those bedside manners, but at the same time, if you did that, you were reprimanded for taking up too much time and for not going through patients as quickly. So once again, I was not thriving in that environment, because I'm someone who's loving, who's social, who wants to connect with each and every person, and I really wasn't able to do that there. In addition to that, I felt like I was kind of being discriminated against. All of my coworkers were Asian, and I was the only Middle Eastern, and I noticed that a lot of them were getting perks that I wasn't getting. So for instance, one of the things was that when you first become an employee, you're on probation, okay? And this basically is kind of standard across a lot of different industries. It just means that you're not able to get any benefits, you're not able to take time off and things of that nature. And so I was told that I was on probation. But then all of a sudden during lunch breaks, I would hear that my coworker, who was hired literally the same week I was able to take a day off to go to her friend's graduation. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And this was happening like multiple times, where I heard other employees talking about being able to take a day off for random things, you know, that were not serious matters. So after hearing that, I was like, well, maybe I could maybe I could request a day off for my birthday. I thought it was a simple request. And so I talked to my manager and I was like, am I able to take this day off for my birthday? And mind you, I'm asking like a month in advance. My manager got so angry with me, was literally yelling at me that how could I think that I would be able to take a birthday off? I'm on probation, you know, that is not allowed. And so I immediately kind of backed off and was like, oh, okay, well, sorry, I didn't realize that, you know, it was that serious. And then tell me why the next day there was an employee meeting where my manager had a whole meeting just to tell everyone there that, remember, probation means you can't take any days off, and he's basically just wanting to yell at me even more. Keeps looking over at me like, you better not ask for anything, because I'm literally gonna conduct another employee meeting just to yell at you. So anyways, this job was not going well. The crazy thing was in everyone else's eyes, I had succeeded. I had made it. I had secured this job as an optometric technician, and I was actually, you know, in the medical field, and this was going to look great for my medical school application and so forth. Meanwhile, I was miserable. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was burnt out. I was overwhelmed. My social life was non-existent, and I was literally being paid crumbs, okay? So while this is all happening, I'm studying for my MCAT, which, if you don't know, is basically the exam you need to take to submit with your medical school application, and it's to allow you to become admitted to medical school. So that was so strenuous, having to study for that. It was honestly one of the worst experiences of my life. I ended up taking the test. I actually got a score that wasn't too bad, but at this time, like, I was so over it. Like, I knew that this was not the path for me. So I'm kind of moving all over the place. Back to that job. And so finally, a few months into working there, I was working one day, and mind you, we had never been told what to do in the case of an emergency or in the case of anything, right? Like, I wasn't told who my supervisor was. I only knew my manager. I didn't know there was even a supervisor on every shift. That was not something I was aware of. So anyways, during one of my shifts, I got a call that shook me to my core. Okay, I don't want to go into details, but it was basically my doctor calling me to tell me about the results of a test that I had taken. This call shook me to my core when I heard the voicemail, and I asked, you know, if I was able to return the call. I was told yes, so I went into the room and I gave my doctor a call, and this situation was an emergency. It was something that prompted me to drop everything, and like, I literally had to go home. I had to process this information. I had to process this test result, and I was not in a state of mind to be taking care of patients. Like, my eyes were full of tears. So during this situation, I had never been in a situation like this before, right? I'm technically on the clock, I'm at my job, but I'm literally in the middle of an emergency here. And so I ended up just asking the other people, like, can I go home? I've just gotten a call from my doctor, and I can't be here. I'm not emotionally stable to be here right now. And I was told, sure, like, go home, you know? So I believe that this all happened on a Friday. The following Monday, I come into work and I'm told that I need to meet with my manager. So I walk into the room and it seems very serious in there. And as soon as I sit down, I'm told, you know, you've been let go. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, yeah, you've been let go. You basically left in the middle of a shift without notifying your supervisor. And I was like, I hadn't even been told that I had a supervisor. And I told all of these people that were there, you know, that day, my colleagues, if I could go, and they said yes. And my manager was like, nope, they don't have that say. You weren't able to leave. This is not an environment where you can just walk in and walk out. And they were just so apathetic to my situation. They were so, like, their hearts were like calloused, you know? They had no empathy for anything that I was going through. They made it seem like I was leaving to go have fun and to go party or something, when I was literally leaving because of a medical emergency. And in that moment, I was just like, what if that was your daughter? You know, like, I literally thought that in my head. Like, what if that was your daughter who was having an emotional meltdown because of a test result, and she told you that she had been let go of that? Would you have had this same response? I don't know what the answer to that question is, to be honest, but in that moment, I knew I was simply just a number. I was simply just another employee. I was simply just another person who could do the role that was assigned. Nobody cared about my feelings. Nobody cared about my emotions. Nobody cared about the human side of me. Nobody cared about my emergency. Nobody even asked me if I was okay or if there was anything, wrong that they could help me with. So I walked out of there with so much emotion. Like, I literally couldn't even express it. I was angry, I was sad, I was pissed, I was kind of relieved, all of these things at once. And in that moment, I decided I would be my own boss. And not only that, but I decided that I would be the type of boss who cared about people, who cared about their stories, who understood that they're human, that they have emotions, that they have emergencies. I wasn't going to put people on probation because they were new or because, they had to prove themselves to me. I wasn't going to discriminate and treat certain people different from others. I was going to be fair and just and equal with everyone who worked with me. And that is exactly what I did. Exactly 8 months after that situation, I started my business, which I still currently run, and I immediately started making 5 times more than that on an hourly basis. So all in all, to say, this experience was enlightening. It really shed awareness on the state of most jobs and the fact that most people are unhappy at their 9-to-5s. Now, I don't want to say that all businesses are like this and all, managers are so mean, but unfortunately, this is kind of a common theme with a lot of people who work at 9-to-5s, who work as employees. They don't really have any freedom. And for me, freedom is one of my top values. It is one of the top things that I prioritize in life. I prioritize freedom over money because at the end of the day, I don't care if a 9-to-5 wants to pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I don't have the freedom and control over my time, my life, my schedule, then that money is basically worthless because I'm not able to live the life that I want. So that was the moment where it all changed. That was the moment when I decided that I wanted to be in control of my life. I didn't care anymore about being a dermatologist. I didn't care anymore about being at a certain company. All I cared about was the freedom that I wanted, the freedom of my time, the freedom of my money, the freedom to, create my own rates, the freedom to go on vacation, the freedom to take a day off, the freedom to have an emergency if needed. And my life has become infinitely better, infinitely more rich of experience, of love, of happiness, of joy, now that I've embarked on this journey. So I'm not going to say that entrepreneurship is easy by any means. It's hard because technically you're always on the clock in a certain sense. I get emails sometimes at midnight and I'm like, ooh, gotta answer this. I get calls when I'm out of the country, but at the end of the day, I can say no if I want to. And that has just made a hell of a difference in my life. And I honestly think that I was born for this. I am a natural born leader. I'm self-driven, I'm self-motivated, and I love to innovate, and I love to create my own thing and see it progress and be able to test out different ideas and to change and pivot and to share all that knowledge with you guys. So now I'm literally living out my dream. I have my education business, Way to Grade A, which is thriving. I'm so happy to say that. I have my YouTube, I have my coaching business, and all in all, I have myself, and it's just an entirely different level of freedom that I previously didn't have. So that is my story time. I hope that it was I don't know, I hope that it taught you something. I hope that you guys are able to maybe find a golden nugget that can help you out. I definitely want you guys to check out my other video where I talk about 10 jobs that I had before becoming an entrepreneur, because a lot of people just see the end goal and think that you just woke up like this, but entrepreneurship is a journey, and I had multiple jobs and internships before I was able to really go on this path. So I'll meet you guys in that next video. Bye!